In this podcast episode, Andrew Huberman hosts James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, to explore the science and real-world application of habit formation and breaking bad habits. Their in-depth conversation covers the challenges people face when trying to change behavior, the neuroscience behind learning and plasticity, the role of environment and identity in shaping habits, strategies for creating lasting change, and how to design systems that work uniquely for each individual. Clear also shares personal experiences and insights into how he has applied these principles throughout shifting life seasons, parenting, and professional development. James Clear opens by framing habits as solutions to recurring problems individuals encounter regularly. He emphasizes that while everyone faces similar problems, their habitual solutions vary widely, some healthier, some less so. A critical insight shared is the tremendous power of the moment before starting a habit. The first 5 minutes or even 30 seconds serve as the crucial friction point determining whether a habit sticks or fails. Overcoming procrastination and initiating action repeatedly is more important than grand plans or motivation alone. Those who master starting by making initial engagement easy and accessible hold the key to consistent behavior change. Scaling back ambition in favor of simplicity and low friction increases adherence exponentially. Clear outlines his widely known framework for habit formation, the 4 laws of behavior change. First, a habit must be made obvious. Cues should be visible and unavoidable in your environment. Then it must be attractive, meaning the habit or its context should be appealing or enjoyable. Third, the habit should be scaled to be easy and convenient, removing barriers that could prevent execution. Finally, a habit must be satisfying to promote repetition and positive reinforcement. Clear highlights there are many practical ways to implement each law based on individual preferences and contexts. Environmental design, such as placing running shoes in plain sight or removing communications devices during focus time, serves as a vital tool. The framework does not prescribe a one-size-fits-all solution, but rather offers a toolkit for customization. The conversation delves into how habits fluctuate naturally over different life stages and seasons. Clear explains that habits need not, or realistically cannot, remain static forever, but should adapt to changing demands and contexts. He shares his own journey, writing intensive, long-form articles twice weekly for years, then shifting to book writing and currently producing a newsletter weekly with a lighter time commitment. Likewise, fitness routines changed over decades, depending on family responsibilities and time constraints. He stresses the value of giving oneself permission to change habits fluidly, rather than self-flagellating over lapses or shifts. Mental toughness, he notes, is less about grinding regardless and more about adaptability, finding ways to show up, even with less energy or limited time. Clear frames habit acquisition fundamentally as learning, engaging the brain's plasticity. Habits represent repeated behaviors that become easier and more automatic through practice. He distinguishes between passive developmental plasticity, learning through environment, and self-directed instructional plasticity, where there are clear, correct responses that must be learned and refined, such as shooting free throws or typing on a keyboard. This instructional plasticity requires breaking down complex behaviors into manageable chunks to avoid overwhelm and increase chances of success. The story of a reader who went to the gym but limited himself initially to 5 minutes demonstrated the power of mastering just the act of showing up, the first necessary and bottleneck skill before building intensity or duration. A major theme discussed is the role of personal identity in habit formation. Clear introduces the concept of identity-based habits. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become, rather than simply a means to an outcome. This shift in mindset helps habits become part of the self-concept, which naturally reinforces persistence. For example, running because I am a runner, rather than I want to run a race, changes how motivation and resistance operate. Consistent actions build pride and ownership over identity, making it easier to sustain habits long-term and integrate them into daily life. Clear highlights the psychological switch from should and motivation battles to am and inherently motivated behavior. Huberman and Clear discuss the balance between flow states and friction or effortful persistence. While flow and intrinsic enjoyment are ideal, much of growth and skill acquisition happens by showing up and doing the work during suboptimal or challenging conditions. Clear explains that consistency enlarges ability, that growing capacity requires enduring moments when motivation or energy is low and simply persisting. The story of developing mental toughness through sports and extending that to entrepreneurship illustrates how the ability to bounce back from losses or hard days is crucial. Even short, low-intensity sessions or imperfect efforts matter greatly because they maintain momentum. Clear emphasizes the value of having scalable versions of habits that can be done on bad days rather than all-or-nothing approaches. Both guests agree environment is a critical yet often overlooked factor shaping habits. The design of physical spaces, what cues are visible, what is convenient, guides habitual decisions far more effectively than willpower alone. Clear recommends assessing your physical environment for what behavior it encourages and modifying it to make good habits easier and bad habits harder or invisible. Equally important is the social environment. Humans have deep social needs for belonging and affiliation, so habits aligned with group norms are easier to sustain, and dissenting from group behaviors can carry social friction. Clear advises seeking or creating communities where desired behaviors are the norm, whether that's a yoga studio or a peer group, to facilitate success. When communities don't exist, intentionally creating small groups can provide accountability and shared motivation. Clear discusses how habits extend beyond actions to encompass mental inputs and attention. He notes that thoughts are downstream of inputs, meaning what you consume, books, podcasts, social media, largely shapes your future thinking and creative output. Just as cluttered physical spaces distract behaviorally, cluttered digital environments erode focus. Clear shares practical digital hygiene strategies, removing social media apps from phones, creating friction around accessing email, and limiting phone proximity during productive hours to reduce reflexive, habitual phone checking. This friction works because the habit of phone use is sustained by continuous, low-effort cues rather than strongly rewarding dopamine hits. Designing your digital environment to prioritize meaningful inputs and limit distractions is essential for habit success in the modern age. To break bad habits, Clear recommends inverting the 4 laws of behavior change. This means making harmful behaviors less obvious by reducing exposure or hiding cues, making them unattractive by changing your perspective or identity, making them difficult by increasing friction or effort to engage, and making them unsatisfying by adding immediate costs or consequences. He shares examples such as placing sweets on high shelves to introduce physical effort or using contracts with social accountability for weight loss or quitting smoking. Social constraints can discourage bad habits when environments make them socially unacceptable or isolate triggers. Yet, changing attraction toward a bad habit is often the hardest and slowest part, typically requiring identity transformation over time. Clear and Huberman explore how identity can both strengthen and limit habit change. Embracing a new identity can propel habit adoption, but rigid attachment to an old identity can stall growth and adaptation. Examples include athletes retiring, founders exiting companies, or transitions through life stages like becoming an empty nester. Clear advocates finding through lines in prior identities that can be carried forward into new roles to smooth transitions. He also warns against over-attachment to external perceptions or public recognition of one's identity, which can produce fragility and suffering when misunderstood. Healthy identity involves seeing it as fluid and continuously edited rather than fixed, enabling reinvention and psychological resilience to change. One of the foundational insights discussed is the critical role of failure and rebound in habit formation and excellence. Failure is inevitable, even for top performers and creators, but learning to fail publicly, recover, and continue striving builds resilience and long-term success. Sports, where feedback and failure are immediate and public, provide a model for training this skill. The conversation acknowledges that today's digital world magnifies every slip-up, increasing scrutiny, but also offering opportunities for reflection and learning. Feedback loops, including reflection and self-testing, are powerful for learning and keeping habits on track. The mantra, never miss twice, encourages quick course correction to prevent small lapses from becoming derailments. Clear emphasizes the practical aspect of timing in habit formation, noting earlier in the day tends to provide higher odds for habit success due to fewer interruptions and fresher energy. Yet, individual circumstances and control over daily schedules vary widely, demanding flexible strategies. He and Huberman discuss how workouts around mid-morning may capitalize on circadian factors like body temperature and cortisol rhythms to optimize performance and mental clarity. Clear also highlights that habits should be sequenced to maximize their influence. For example, working out primes reading, which in turn primes writing. This chain of productive behavior underscores the importance of understanding how habits can build on each other throughout a day. Mental framing plays a salient role in habit persistence and emotional resilience. Clear discusses the benefits of visualizing positive outcomes before engaging in a task, rehearsing good behaviors, emphasizing wins after experiences, and choosing empowering narratives rather than negative self-criticism. This emphasis on positive mental attitude is seen as a learned mindset originating in part from family influences for Clear and as a useful tool for overcoming anxiety or resistance around habits. He notes the cognitive science supporting reflection as a learning enhancer, enabling consolidation and better retention of experiences. This mind shift helps with motivation, encourages showing up, and reduces the aversiveness of effortful tasks. The episode explores how habits can evolve from externally motivated tasks into intrinsically rewarding activities with continued practice and identity reinforcement. Clear shares that over many years of exercise, the effort itself has become the reward. He enjoys the practice and the way it makes him feel in the moment, rather than only valuing distant outcomes like improved appearance or race times. This transformation deepens commitment and lessens reliance on fluctuating motivation. However, such experiential enjoyment typically emerges over time and is not universal from the start. The analogy to the pump during resistance training also illustrates how sensory feedback and immediate rewards enhance adherence. Throughout the discussion, Clear offers numerous pragmatic suggestions. These include environmental priming by making cues visible, organizing dedicated spaces or objects for habits, scaling down behaviors for easier initiation, and introducing accountability through contracts and social commitments. He stresses that fixing default environmental triggers, whether in physical space, social groups, or digital devices, is often more effective than willpower. For breaking bad habits, increasing friction and social costs can aid avoidance. Creating new social groups or communities around shared habits introduces supportive norms. For maintaining consistency, lowering the bar on bad days and permitting scalable versions of habits fosters long-term adherence. Both Huberman and Clear emphasize the importance of oscillating between focused effort and genuine rest. Clear adopts the view that balance is less about moderate steady state and more about being able to turn on and turn off fully, whether across hours or seasons of life. This capacity to mentally step outside situations to observe calmly aids stress management and decision-making. He discusses sleep, physical recovery, and active relaxation as critical complements to habit work. Rest and reflection create space to evaluate priorities and redirect efforts to the highest value activities rather than grinding blindly. This rhythm supports sustainability over a lifetime. The conversation also touches on the human desire to create lasting impact through work and habits. Clear critiques chasing peak performance or optimizing for short-term output without broader perspective. Instead, focusing on how to spend days meaningfully and building identity-aligned practices cultivates sustainable fulfillment. They discuss how works of literature, art, or talks that endure over time represent true legacy. In contrast, fleeting media content tends to be forgotten. Clear encourages orienting efforts around daily systems and identity rather than chasing external validation or perfection. Acceptance of imperfection and iterative improvement aligns with healthy creative and professional development. As parting notes, Clear mentions new projects including an Atomic Habits workbook designed to operationalize habit concepts into daily life and an upcoming Atomic Habits daily calendar providing simple mindset prompts for daily motivation and habit support. These tools aim to extend the reach of his core messages by making application easier and offering continual reminders. Clear invites listeners to explore these and his foundational work for deeper engagement with habit science, customized to personal growth.